We are beginning the press conference on a topic, the whole truth, what happens to business and its owners in Ukraine. Today we'll discuss the situation with one large metropolitan business, the owner of the company Lux Express 2, with issue on open appeal asking for asylum in the USA. What happened to successful business and why it is possible in Ukraine? Let me introduce the participants of the press conference. Mykola Ivanenko, owner of Lux Express 2 company. Alexey Baganets, lawyer. Yuri Karmazin, first deputy chairman of the Committee for Justice under the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. Mr. Mykola, I give you the word. Tell us what happened. First of all, I wish to thank all that agreed to participate in the press conference. As it reported, the following are present today in studio: lawyer Alexey Baganets and the first deputy chairman of the Committee for Justice under Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, Yuri Karmazin. Today I have the last chance to resolve the problem that has arisen through the fault of the head of the Southwestern Railway. I am a native Kievan. My parents dedicated their life to service to the state, working in the public prosecution bodies. Their combined experience in the public prosecution bodies is about 75 years. While working at General Prosecutor's Office, my father supervised compliance with law over places of confinement in Lviv, Lugansk, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk and Sumy regions. He was giving a chance to post-release prisoners to become worthy members of our society. My father have dedicated last years to protection of human rights, for what he was rewarded with the Lapel Badge for protection of human rights number 2. Despite the fact that the whole my family dedicated their life to the compliance with law on protection of human rights, my personal right of ownership, as guaranteed by the Constitution and human rights, were cynically violated. I have 2 degrees. I have graduated from the Faculty of Law under Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev and gained a degree of Master of Economics at the National Academy of Public Administration under the President of Ukraine. I started my business in 1993, having registered a limited liability company Lux Express 2. In 1998, Lux Express 2 and Kiev Council concluded the contracts on the right of temporary long-term use for a period of 10 or 94 years, which included buildings and structures owned by Lux Express 2, till the recent incidents. Major buildings with area of about 10,000 square meters have been constructed within the purpose of land and territory and in accordance with all the necessary permits. Lux Express 2 successfully conducted the business by renting out storage spaces as well as carrying out sale and service of vehicles. For a long time, the company was providing an employment for over 200 people, for what, according to results of National Business Rating of the State Statistics Committee of Ukraine in 2006, it joined the ranks of leaders in branch, having ranked a second place with a total score of nominators, volume of sold products, profits, labor efficiency and wages. At present, all the buildings were demolished on the ground of illegal judicial decrees of Economic Court of Ukraine. The property and even the building materials were destroyed and plundered. Documents on land lease were also destroyed and illegally terminated on the ground alleged to be due to their misuse. At present, according to the results of independent expert assessment, the company's loss stands $35.539 million United States dollars, excluding non-pecuniary damage of company's owners. Some of the buildings were under the building of interchange, so-called Kirpa Bridge. Lux Express 2 never prevented from construction of interchange and in its turn repeatedly offered to create a committee for determining the damages stipulated by existing legislation for land user and owner of buildings. In its turn, even in the course of designing the bridge in 2004, the compensation was foreseen. I want to show this document, which clearly states that Lux Express 2 is the company and clearly states the amount to be paid. More than once, I appealed to all authorities with a request to settle the issue on compensation payment for Lux Express 2 due to the necessity of building interchange of Kirpa Bridge on the plots of land. But state agencies and officials, intentionally and purposefully misusing their office, have committed a number of crimes that resulted in significant losses both for state, Ukrainian people and founders of the company Lux Express 2. In addition, the officials and prosecution agencies, designed to supervise the compliance with law in our country, and in spite of the current legislation, commit crimes through false compilation of evidences. At today's press conference, I appeal to the government of Ukraine and to you personally, Viktor Fedorovich, as to President of Ukraine, the guarantor of the Constitution of Ukraine, and I ask you to protect my human rights and right of ownership. The officials who have committed the malfeasance are the heads of Southwestern Railway, Inspection of State, Architectural and Construction Control in Kiev, Main Department of Land Resources of Ukraine, Kiev City Administration, Prosecutor's Office of Darnitsa District, Prosecutor's Office in Kiev, the General Prosecutor's Office of Ukraine, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, Economic Courts of Kiev City, the Appellate Courts under the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court of Ukraine. Corruption acts of the official listed above have all signs of organized criminal group, aimed at concealing the theft of extremely large amounts of national money. In order to get a clear understanding of problem, I am bringing to your notice a documental film that was shown on July 09, 2012 on the TVI channel. I draw your attention to the fact that immediately after the story broadcasting, all the company's buildings being mortgaged since 2005 were demolished. After repeated threats from unknown persons as well as officials of Public Prosecutor's Office, at present I appealed to the government of the United States of America to provide me and my family with a political asylum. I also intend to pursue my interests in the European Court. If you are interested in issues on today's press conference, you can contact me on my Facebook page, Mykola Ivanenko, and write me an email about the known facts of corrupt acts and facts of crime of the officials in all public authorities, in order to join our efforts to struggle against corruption in Ukraine. Since we have a little time and this is a live program, I'd like to give my word to Alexei Baganets. He will give more professional comments to the chain of events that occurred recently to me, to my family and my business.
Прошу, пане Олексій, вас до слова. Тим більше, що я так розумію, що всі ці звинувачення, які, на власну думку, от Микола тільки що оголосив, це на основі тих документів, які він подавав і отримав на них відповіді, напевно. Прошу.
Дякую.
It has to be said that Mykola Vasilyevich turned to us only at the end of July this year. In other words, we didn't participate in all the events that Mykola Vasilyevich has stated. We participated only through representing his interests before the Supreme Economic Court. Therefore, in order to tell how the hearing at the Supreme Commercial Court has ended, I would like to start from the very beginning that everybody understands what legal grounds exist to hold such position as Mykola does. First of all, I must say that the circumstances were such that I knew his father and mother. I have been working with his father for a long time in General Prosecutor's Office of Ukraine and treat him with great respect. God rest his soul. But I want to say that while working in the position of prosecutor of Kharkiv region, It so happened that in 2000 I and the first heads of administration were invited to the opening of the first such automobile show in the city of Kiev, which by the way is located in the Kharkiv region. In 2000 I personally took part in the opening of this automobile show, wherein representatives of Kiev city administration and the leaders of Kharkiv region were present. So I read the documents he gave me, according to which South Western Railroad wrote to the Ministry of Construction and Development that these buildings were built illegally in 2008-2009. For me, it was amazing. I understood that this is not true. So we agreed to protect Mykola Vasilievich, defending his interests before the court. In 2004, Dniprovsky District Court gave judgment recognizing the right of ownership of the founders of Lux Express 2 for 2 buildings. I have been there personally. There are 2 powerful motor complexes on selling and maintenance Honda and Nissan cars. Mykola gave me documents stating that there was some area of the market. So in 2004, the founders of this company proved their ownership on these buildings in court. Time passed, and according to the documents that we have analyzed, in 2006, the founders of this company applied to the Shevchenkivsky District Court of Kiev City for forced payment of material damages by South Western Railway to the company as a result of the fact that their property and land fall within such bridge building. In court, they proved the existence of such losses, and by the judgment of Shevchenkivsky District Court of Kiev City, their claim was satisfied to the amount of 460 million hryvnias. South Western Railway had to reimburse the money to this company for losses that it suffered as a result of the forced removal of their property due to the public necessity. This judgment of Shevchenkivsky District Court entered into force and was confirmed also by a decree of Kiev Court of Appeal in 2006. In December 2006, the Deputy General Prosecutor of Ukraine filed cassation appeal to the Supreme Court of Ukraine requiring cancellation of these decisions of civil courts due to the fact that in judgment of General Prosecutor of Ukraine the dispute had to be resolved in economic courts, since the dispute is not between the individuals but between the legal entities. Therefore, General Prosecutor's Office formally believed that the dispute should be resolved in the economic courts, not in the courts of civil jurisdiction. True to form, when we read the decree of Supreme Court of Ukraine, there was clearly written that the courts of first and second instance correctly determined all circumstances of the case. This was the position of the Supreme Court of Ukraine. But it seemed as if there was false assessment, since this dispute had to be resolved in the economic courts. On this basis, both judgments of the courts of first and second instances were cancelled in 2006. After 2006, I didn't see any judgment which would dispute ownership of Mykola Vasilievich on this property. Generally, I saw no documents. In 2010, there were documents executed by the representatives of State Committee on Land Resources about the fact that they had inspected companies' compliance with the requirements of laws on land, including the purpose of land. There is an act signed by a competent officer and confirming that there are no violations of laws on land in the actions of Mykola Vasilievich and his company, including absence of any evidences of land misuse. And then, in 2012, before these two judgments, there was a letter signed by the deputy prosecutor in Kyiv City, contents of which I support fully. In this letter, he appealed to the Kyiv City State Administration, namely to the head of Kyiv City State Administration, and said that there is the situation with forced removal of property belonging to company. As clearly says Deputy Prosecutor in Kyiv, that this property belongs to the company Lux Express 2 on the right of private ownership. It was established on the basis of prosecutorial review, and he asked the head of Kyiv City State Administration to form appropriate commission to find out why the Southwestern Railway Company and company cannot reach common ground to determine the amount of damages which the railroad should indemnify due to the fact that one must forcibly seize property in connection with public necessity. It is absolutely correct decision. Then I see no protocols of meetings of the commission. Thereafter, I see an action brought by deputy prosecutor in Kyiv to the economic court, which was the first in February this year, but not in the interests of Southwestern Railroad, but in the interests of Kyiv City State Administration. About the fact of this production, uses provided land inappropriately. Judgment of economic court is to satisfy the claim completely, as if their effect terminated. I draw your attention to the fact that there are two agreements on land use. There is one agreement on use for 49 years, which failed in 1996. Another was the contract on use for 10 years. But again, I would like to stress that there were two contracts. Mykola Vasilievich challenged, appealed against this judgment in the Economic Court of Appeal. It duplicates the judgment of the Economic Court in Kyiv. Then a month later, or rather in March, there was a new action brought by the Deputy Chief Prosecutor of Kyiv to Economic Court due to the fact that as if company has built these buildings without permission. They turned to the court in order to confirm that they were built illegally and wished to demolish them forcibly at company's expense. And judgment of Economic Court is favorable, and this favorable judgment was also made by Economic Court of Appeal, not in favor of my client. Dear representatives of mass media, I draw your attention to the fact that even if it was proved, although it is not, that company Lux Express 2 constructed these premises without permission, in such case, they can be demolished and prove by expertise that buildings were constructed in contravention of building norms and rules. In such case, they cannot be demolished. As for me, the property belonged to the founder and members of Lux Express company on the right of private ownership, and they were simply deprived of such a right, including the use of the judge's decision. I was very surprised that the same facts once stated by Supreme Court were interpreted by Dniprovsky District Court in other way, in two court judgments. Even in 2012, the founders of the company turned to the Dniprovsky district court in order to identify the property belonging to Lux Express on the right of private ownership.
У 12-му році, у березні місяці, суд підтвердив і підтримав це рішення суду.
Я вам поможу чому.
I want Mr. Mykola to emphasize again that it concerns not only him as citizen, but many other people who suffered. No one is impervious to what has happened to me. My company employed about 200 people. I'm sorry, there is very little airtime. Dear friends, I examined this case and I had to write such huge appeal to the chief prosecutor of Ukraine on 8 pages. It demonstrates a terrible pain of the man who turned to those entrepreneurs. Just imagine, 200 jobs were lost because of foolishness and stupidity of government officers, terrible corruption in our country. They were lost only with the purpose of corruption. Today it hasn't been told that State Service for Combating Economic Crimes under the Chief Directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine in Kiev concluded that it is planned to pay the company for damages in the amount of 10 million karbovanets of the total estimated cost. It was envisaged in the budget. 470 millions were provided for in the budget. Further, it is written, to date the funds are expended for other purposes, but not in accordance with their designated purpose. In other words, the case is corruption in 200 million hryvnias by one example. That is why there was a letter by Administratenko, first deputy of the chairman of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, dated December 21, 2011, and then instruction by the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Azarov. This instruction forced public prosecutor's office and courts to deal in an illegal way. And when one appealed to me as first deputy of chairman of the Committee for Justice under the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, I saw that there is corruption all around. Corruption is in government, corruption in the state authorities, corruption in railway, and this corruption was covered by those who should know much about this. Because of this, I turned to the general prosecutor to make it stop. This corruption is acknowledged in a letter by head of the Kiev Court of Appeal, who clearly wrote, "Please note that the above matter is important for the state, since building of bridge is planned on the territory of land." Can you imagine instruction of the Prime Minister of Ukraine in the court file in any other country? It is at once lost case of Ivanenko against Ukraine. It is court victory in your favor because it is a direct intervention, direct violation of the Constitution by Mr. Azarov. And the following. I want that everybody understands that this case includes flagrant violation of constitutional provisions on the right of ownership in Ukraine. I want to make it clear to all that eyes were closed to those judgments. They were simply ignored. And imagine a situation when after such instruction dated December 23 in January, the electricity was cut out in 30 degrees below zero. Batteries broke, everything was destroyed. 200 people were thrown idle in Kiev city. A good investment climate, a good example, and thereafter there is rupture and tearing of the company and people. The man is forced to ask for political asylum in another country. I'm sorry when such effective people depart from Ukraine. I'm sorry, but I cannot help, because all I could do I have appealed and demonstrated. Corruption must be stopped. But this cannot be done since it comes from the very top. It is from the government of the country, and therefore, Mykola Yanovich Azarov, I, Yuri Karmazin, blame you for covering corruption. You are the foremost corruptionist in this country. By this example, companies were broken. There are hundreds and thousands of such enterprises in Ukraine. I appeal to the honest judges. Please ignore such instructions of the government. You are independent according to the Constitution. I hope that truth will revive, despite the officials. But there is such instruction by the Prime Minister. Please contact the law enforcement agencies for the assessment of unauthorized occupation. Mr. Azarov, so-called, and go to court with a claim for termination of contract on the right of temporary use of the land. That is why all contracts were dissolved. Everything happens because of such instruction, because of government intervention. It is nowhere possible in any other European country, and this shouldn't occur also in Ukraine. But it happened, unfortunately. Before we proceed to the comments of our guests, I would like to ask Mr. Mykola, tell me please, do you plan to return to Ukraine, and under what conditions? Yes, I still hope that the political situation in our country will change. I'm a patriot of my country. I never wanted to leave it. Here are my ancestors in the 7th generation. To date, I had to take away my family through third countries. My family is abroad. I would like to thank the United States government since they gave me a visa support, they gave security, and they gave me protection. I came to Ukraine just for this conference. FBI officers are aware of what is going on with me and my family. I just want to tell you that when I visit prosecutor's office, it would seem that I was born in this building and one says to you, "Hey, stop complaining. One will actually eat your head off." Listen, I'm not Gangadze. In the end, I will never become Gangadze. I'm Ivanenko. That is why I asked you all to come here, that everybody should understand that Ukraine doesn't have constitution at present. The only thing by which we differ at present from Somalia is that Somalia thrashes anyone who swims next to their country, and we have beaten off all those who works. Thank you. I want also to mention that People's Deputy of Ukraine, Mykola Katerinchuk, wanted to provide his support in this matter, but he is physically unable to attend here. Now we are trying to contact him by phone. If you have any questions, please, we will answer with due diligence. We're calling upon Mr. Katerinchuk.
Да, перепрошую, тоді ми все ж таки надаємо слово пану Миколі Катеринчуку, який зараз телефоном нам надасть свої коментарі щодо даної справи. Пане Миколо, прошу вас, ви біля мікрофону, слухаємо вас.
I would like to say...
Трошки голосніше, будь ласка.
Чути. Говоріть.
I would like to say that today this case may be politically charged, but in fact it is completely non-political, since when the Lux Express registered its building in the far 2000 years, in 2012, the Public Prosecutor's Office indicated that there was a violation related to the compensation of those property complexes and land that were used in the construction of the bridge called Darnitsky Bridge. There can be no doubts that it was illegally and 1 billion hryvnias was stolen. It was designed for compensation of damages to such companies as Lux Express. But this issue can become a political and have negative implications for Ukraine. So I call law enforcement agencies and the President of Ukraine to intervene in this matter immediately, since the businessman owner of Lux Express 2 is forced today to contact the United States Embassy to obtain refugee status due to the fact that his business is being destroyed here. And I am sure that today in Ukraine there is enough interest in investments in Ukraine. But such examples that have serious international response and could be a subject of trial at Strasbourg court later will be great shock to the investment climate and business in general. I'm sure that at present the foible of some officials of Ukrainian railways can become a problem for Ukraine at the level of State Department of the United States and European Parliament. This entrepreneur goes to the press conference, which means that he has no more chances to contact anyone because all stages are completed and all courts are passed. But if there is an instruction from the Prime Minister Azarov which lies on the table of the judge, how can you win an action, even with all the evidences and legal grounds, the decision to be in your favor? The trial was conducted only in order not to pay compensation for property that was destroyed and removed from this businessman. So, being a People's Deputy of Ukraine, I appeal to the President of Ukraine and law enforcement agencies, the Prosecutor's Office in Kiev, the General Prosecutor, to intervene in this situation immediately and save the image of Ukraine. Rescue businessman who has been working honestly for the whole his life, paid taxes and believed that he is living in home country. Do not let him go abroad in the status of forced political refugee for the reason that business is destroyed in Ukraine. Thank you, Mykola, for your comments. Let's move on to questions of mass media.
І ще раз хочу нагадати, що мова йде про підприємство, яке було не тільки лідером серед організацій робочого процесу і платників податків, а крім того, мова йде про людей, які втратили, 200 людей, які раптово втратили свої робочі місця. Прошу називати себе і задавати свої запитання.
I have a question for Mr. Karmazin. Tell me, please, an issue about Mr. Ivanenko is a situation being equal to a personal conflict with the authorities. Your situation with the General Election Commission also may be seen as a conflict with the authorities, or there are really some documentary inaccuracies. I ask you to put questions relating to topic of our press conference. Resource Highway. I know many of those present, and I know that they are fighters. Mykola Vasilievich, tell that current situation started not today. Whenever talking about it, there was not you. There was not yours 3 most powerful buildings, but there were some 5 grandmothers who were promoted here, saying that they are the main enemies of Kiev citizens. How did it turn out that Kievans have missed killing of economically significant employer before their very eyes? How did it turn out that we all were deceived? You are a man with great influence. In addition, you are a man of the elite, not of generated today elite, but of Soviet elite. How did it turn out that you remained silent all these years? The fact is, in our country, unfortunately, has no rigid media censorship. If you visit internet today, you will see no publication related to the construction of bridge of Left Bank overhead road. Everything was suppressed and blocked. Nobody said anything about it. Management board of Southwestern Railway, I just don't want to mention surnames in order to have no questions with them. They told me that they don't build the interchange at all. I don't need this interchange. It's just nonsense. I am native Kievan. My 3rd grandfather took a walk here on Krishchatik. Don't I understand that such interchange was in the interests of state? You know, according to the general plan of bridge construction, the building had to be finished as far back as in 2009. Just think what huge losses were at stake. Today is 2012. If you are interested, then travel and look at Chernobyl. Today the construction of interchange is not conducted. There is no money. Money was stolen. In 2012, the report was given to the Cabinet of Ministers, Euro 2012 preparation plan for a non-existent object, namely left bank overhead road. 1,068 million hryvnias was spent. I declare it officially. No bridge, no descent. Where did this money go? 550 million hryvnias. Supposedly, Lux Express do not let to build. This is nonsense upon stilts. There is no document signed by me that I am opposed to what Kievans need, but it's the image of our state. What jams! People sit in their cars and cannot get to work. Pregnant women in ambulances are faced with the fact that children are delivered in cars. That's because a group of officials plundered the people's money. Indeed, it is the case of not my money. Can you specify when the funds for such compensation were provided for in the budget? In 2004, the funds were provided for, and in 2006, I have already demonstrated this document and will show it again with pleasure. In 2008, 750 million hryvnias were planned in state fund for compensation of losses for land users. Project on consolidation of estimates adjusted concerning complex according to the conclusion of Central Service of Ukrainian Expertise. In other words, this project passed expertise. All state authorities agreed that the money shall be repaid. In addition, in 2006 the letter was written wherein Management Board of Railway clearly states that the work team was established for determining damages of land users. I would like to define more exactly that these funds in the budget were provided for compensation of damages. Had they to be delivered to Ukrainian Railway? Was it Railway which didn't settle payments with you? Railway is general contractor, both in the Cabinet of Ministers and at session of Kiev City Council. It was provided for that Railway should settle payments with landowners, owners of buildings and structures. In total, 750 million hryvnias were provided for compensation of damages. So you think that these funds were stolen just by officials of Ukrainian Railway? Of course, it were them. Tell me, please, we have heard the amount of 750 millions. As I understand, this is the compensation for all land users, and also we heard 460 million hryvnias. I thought this is compensation for you. 460 millions are expert evaluation, declared by us as losses. In 2004-2006, they were spent to creation of the commission, and it was provided in Ukrainian current legislation that there should be 3 subjects which had to participate in the work of the experts. This is Railway, since it's the customer, Lux Express too, since it is the owners, and representatives of the City Council. So please, clarify which compensation you had to obtain, how such compensation would satisfy you, and how much would you like to obtain. The fact is that I would not like to. there are expert conclusions, wherein experts calculate losses according to certain formulas. This is not what I want, this is legal grounds. This is a clear interest. I do not appreciate my losses. I am preparing for the European Court of Justice since 10,000 meters of premises for an amount of 35 million American dollars were demolished. This is what Ukraine owes me due to officials of Southwestern Railway. In addition, directly on behalf of Kievans, I would like to give word to the main coordinator of the civil company on saving, Chernyakhovsky Vitaly, who also took care of this issue. Dear friends, of course we were interested rather in the aspect of huge embezzlement of budget funds of Southwestern Railway, which has emerged when studying the circumstances connected with the case of Mykola Ivanenko. There is a repeated appeal of people's deputies, in particular Igor Koletnik, who previously was chairman of the Committee for Fighting Against Organized Crime and Corruption, and the fact that even the police of Shevchenkivsky district established elements of a crime provided for by Article 464 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. This is misuse of budget funds aimed at compensation. They were assigned, but they did not reach the owner. Hence, mildly speaking, they were stolen. And now it turns out that in order not to pay the money, they sued and respectively declared construction illegal. The scheme is absolutely clear. Now there is a question what we have to do now. I think that the case of the Southwestern Railway needs to be finalized. There is every reason to apply to the General Prosecutor's Office of Ukraine with requests of thoroughly check of all information concerning a huge expenditure of the funds for the construction of railroad passage through the river Dnieper. According to the primary evidences, there are signs of embezzlement of funds because for some reason the amount is growing permanently. In 2012 alone, the press service of the Cabinet of Ministers declared the amount for the construction of the railroad bridge was 9,257 million hryvnias, whereas in 2006 the figure was 4,800 million hryvnias. That is according to evidences that have been following this message by service of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. The amount spent on construction of the bridge across the Dnieper, which is popularly called Kirpa Bridge, was over 11 billion hryvnias. The bridge is the same. The prices have not changed much. There is no inflation. Wages have not risen greatly, but the costs of the bridge are more than twofold. It is necessary to check every tender and each subcontractor. I think that's where the cause of all evils. 200 million hryvnias. They cannot compensate the entrepreneur which building stood in the way of the bridge. I think that Mykola Vasilievich would not mind if he obtained money and the bridge would be built easily. No, I didn't obtain money, but this is not so important. It is important that everyone heard that the money is stolen. I'll get the money through the European Court of Justice, because I provided almost everyone present with documents as proof of company's legitimacy. They list all the documents authorizing the construction and history of how they were built, project, authorization and order. It's all there. Please look through and read. Let's fight against corruption in Ukraine together. Today I am robbed. Today I am threatened with physical violence. Tomorrow any one of you may find himself or herself in my place. No one is impervious to this. Here is the biggest problem. Such monstrous stealing is often the reason for chronic non-rising of salaries, pension and scholarship in our country. So the money are in the budget, but in reality they are absent. They are just stolen. Given the situation that Alex Krivopishin, head of the Southwestern Railway, is in President's team, taking into account the fact that everything is also not clear yet, we believe that it is necessary to examine its core also. And such a formalized appeal, even with my signature, will be delivered to the General Prosecutor's Office in order to verify the facts. And we'll watch, since we see violation of laws there. Both mayors and politicians are imprisoned for similar crimes today. So I think that there are still prosecutors, e.g. Renata Kuzmina, who may take legal steps against Alexei Krivopishin. Once again, I want to stress that you can see and look through all the documents which today are referred to the case, or speak directly to Mr. Mykola, both directly after the press conference and in social networks such as Facebook.
Коротке запитання, будь ласка,
Андрей Вадим, я начальник юридического управления Экспобанка и третейский судья при Ассоциации украинских банков третейского суда. Вы сказали в своем...
In your speech you said that the buildings have been mortgaged. I would like to know how. Probably it was a bank loan. I would like to know how the bank protects its rights and how you have paid off the loan. Buildings were destroyed. The mortgage was from 2005. The bank which lent the money to me is Kyivskaya Rus. When I turned to the president of the bank and told them that this is mortgage, the pledged property is destroyed, he said, "Of course, you have nothing to take away." In other words, the bank deliberately is ready to lose $550,000 rather than have dealings with government agencies. The case is investments, foreign investments. We are talking about guarantees. Well, pledged property. Some official scrapped something. In the end, this pledged property is destroyed and the bank today filed an action against me. They follow natural procedure. Unfortunately, I cannot take part in this trial. I will apply to the bank that they to meet me halfway, give me the opportunity to win in a European court, and then I give you my word, I will settle payments with the bank. The bank will not suffer. On the contrary, if I didn't obtain credit, I would not have achieved what I have achieved. I would like to say thank to all banks which gave me the money. Therefore, in my appeal, I asked bank representatives to visit press conference that they to see what is mortgage. There are no guarantees. Bank issues a credit secured by pledged property, and in its turn, it was destroyed by executive service. The prosecutor's office said to me, it was not we, but it is the court. And executive office told the same. It wasn't we. We have a court judgment. You should have seen how many policemen arrived to break my buildings. I came there alone with a set of documents and said, I'm not afraid. Here I have the documents confirming that buildings belong to me. I have no complaints against you as executive office. You are executing the judgment. I understand you're at work. You are the police. You have to maintain public order. Some policemen told, if this would be mine, then I would. And I told them, what would you do? I do not want to be handcuffed. So if there is a court decision to break, then break. I will defend my interests in a civilized European Court of Justice. Unfortunately, the conference time ran out. Thank you for listening.